Okay, hey, just out walking on the property, trying to get some fresh air and some ideas in my head. But I wanted to say this is the premiere episode of the Fearless Road podcast. Very excited about having Jen Salerno from JTS Connect on the show as my first guest. A 20-year veteran of the events and hospitality industry, specializing in bringing together audiences and team members and connecting them through ideas that shape our industry. Why I love this particular episode is Jen shares with us how she redefines courage, especially in this during COVID and post-COVID time. She shares with us what it's like to lean into what feels hard, recognizing the power of vulnerability, and the moment she discovered she was an accidental entrepreneur. So I think it's going to be a great episode. I think you're going to learn a lot. Hopefully you get a bit of an understanding of what the show's like. And you're coming on the journey. So welcome to the Fearless Road, premiere episode, Jen Salerno. Hey, we'll see you there. Stay fearless. Bye. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Fearless Road podcast. I am here in studio with the amazing Jen Salerno. She is the event professional who speaks to and represents events, specifically talking about moderators, talking about presentation, talking about performance, and coaching event professionals around the globe, and with the organization PCMA. Is that correct?
Actually, I do work with PCMA. I partner with them. Though I have my own company, which is JTS Connect.
That's right. That's
Yes,
right. And how
yes.
are we connecting? We're connecting people via right now, Riverside Studios. I'm in
Exactly.
New Mexico and you're in Chicago, right?
I am in Chicago, and which is so. I love being here in Chicago just because, obviously it's a wonderful city. I'm sure you've been.
Yes,
But
I have.
Good. But also it's just such a hub for event professionals in general, right? I mean, PCMA, like you mentioned, is headquartered here. I'm part of the Greater Midwest chapter, which has such a robust membership base here in Chicago and the surrounding areas. So, yep, I love being here.
Awesome. Well, I love Chicago, especially the riverboat tour. I know that that's probably a massive cliche, but getting to see the city from the backside and the river where things originally, the river was behind everything, was the back of buildings, was where I suppose they were dumping back in the day. Terrible American experiences. But what's really cool about it is you get to see sort of an underbelly of the city in a very unique, from a very unique perspective. It's just a very cool river, and it's super neat that it comes through the middle of these buildings and underneath stuff. And I think that's cool. I love Chicago.
Yeah. It's so funny that you just brought that up. I was just talking with my husband about my desire to do one of those tours. I'm like, let's do it this weekend. It's been forever. I used to be a concierge. That's how I started in the event industry, actually. And so I don't think I've done a tour since then when I was learning about the city. So that was a good 25 years ago.
Nice. Well,
yeah.
Welcome to the Fearless Road podcast. Jen and I connected via LinkedIn, but mainly through events. And most recently, I believe it was the leadership event for the leadership conference for PCMA.
Yes.
I got to host a game show, which was very corny and very funny, but it was very entertaining to get people to connect and to engage and stuff for the event, which was a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed being able to do that. I've had a lot of respect for Jen for I think about 2 years now, I want to say, monitoring and watching her career and what she does in the events industry. I, of course, come from the events industry, having spent about 15 to 20 years of my life either producing, managing, coordinating, creating events for people. I understand intimately what it takes to put on a successful event. You have to be a kind of particular individual to do this business, to be in this industry. So our audience, exactly. I mean, there's a little type A, there's a little bit of, overachieving, I think, meticulous. So tell the audience, just for those of us who may or may not be familiar with your career and who you are, give us a little bit of background, both professionally and personally, so we can get to know you.
Oh, well, thank you. It's always a fun question, try to figure out where to go with the origin story, right? But
Yes.
I mentioned that I did start my career in the events and hospitality industry, really, and it was started with hospitality, like I said, as a concierge. So right out of college, I started working at the Palmer House Hilton as a concierge, which I had no clue what I was doing, right? I
How
was,
many of us had a clue when we first started out? Like none of
well, I
like,
guess, right. Who knows anything about their first day?
I love that about, do you know what I mean? When we're younger and we're sort of blissfully ignorant about life and we just go, yeah, I'm going to go do that. And you just go and do it. So,
Well, I mean, I think you just hit on something that we'll have to talk about later as we continue on in this episode, right?
notes,
Just
I'll take my note.
pin that for later, the whole just do it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was such a cool experience to work in, especially that property, the Palmer House. It's just such a old, historic, iconic property. So what better place to get started in my hospitality and events career? So after about a year and a half of being a concierge, I realized that wow, there's a career to be had here, and I seized that opportunity. So I worked my way up through the convention services department, and eventually moved on to what was at the time called the Chicago Convention and Tourism Bureau. Now it's Choose Chicago, but the Chicago CVB. Worked there for a few years and learned a whole different perspective of the hospitality and events industry, McCormick Place and all of the special event venues. It was such a cool experience to do that. And then I went back to hotels for a while because I realized that I missed the camaraderie of hotels, and I needed to learn sales. That's something that I had not done yet. And talk about fear. I still have a fear. I still have a fear of sales. It's a hard gig. But
Sales is not, I do not envy salespeople at all. I think I was very blessed in my life to fall into certain types of career paths didn't require, there were sales components to it, of course.
Sure, always.
But yeah, always. I think that's true in a lot of ways for a lot of different career and industries. But when I fell into it, it just was natural for me to pitch what I was doing, how I was doing it to the people who wanted to hear about it and then buy in. So I lucked out, I think, in that way, because it was just easy for me to do, because I loved what I was doing. And I think that really resonates with people. If you're coming from a place of authenticity about your joy of what you're working on and what you're doing for them.
Yes.
Then a sale becomes not a sale, but more of a relationship opportunity, I suppose.
Oh, totally agree. And I think that's really the key for those of us who maybe don't have that typical salesperson persona, which I just don't and didn't. I'll never forget my director at the time having the whole sales team take one of those personality tests.
Yes.
And just to see what's
just did one this past week.
Oh, really?
I keep wanting to see if my personality's changed. I'm just like, haven't I grown? Haven't I adapted? Haven't I become somebody new? And my personality's like, nope, you are still type this. You're still,
Isn't that interesting? Well,
yeah.
I mean, we can definitely grow, I think, in ways that maybe don't change our core belief system or the things that drive us and motivate
us. That really make us who we are, yeah.
Right. So the challenge for me was, all the salespeople on the team have this graph that looks like this, and mine looks like this. And he's just like, why are you doing this? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is not the right career path.
This might be an indicator that you're on the wrong
right. For the relationship piece, like you said, that's the way to sell, I suppose. If you are a person like me, or maybe like you, who just doesn't have that super competitive edge, always close business. That's just not me. But if I love my product and I believe in what I'm doing, I'll talk to you all day long and just convince
you. You can't shut me up.
Work with me.
If you get me started on something I'm passionate about, there's no stopping it.
Don't you love when you're talking about something and you feel that the passion come out and just the words spill out of you?
You're in the flow, as they say.
I love the flow. I love
Yeah.
the flow.
Well, before we flow into more concepts and ideas and questions about fear, so give us a little background on your personal life. You've shared some of your professional experiences. So take us through Jen Salerno, the human. Um, is there a story there or some interesting or OG stories that got you A, into the where you are today specifically, B, some of the biggest challenges you face as a human being on this planet? And I know that's probably you can't do it in 5 minutes or less. So
You know what?
I just gave you a big, massive question. So
I can do this, Michael. I know I can. And I have to give you credit. I've actually never been asked that question before. There's always the career question. How did you get to where you are today in your career trajectory? But, as far as how does the personal piece play into it, that's a really good question. But, so, I mean, long story short, I live here, like I said, in the Chicagoland area. I've been married for almost 20 years and have 2 kids. Thank you. Yeah. And
relationships, if you can maintain a solid relationship with your partner for that long, you've got some foundation. You've got some skills and foundation and character traits that probably lend it really well to your professional career. I think in building relationships, I think that's important.
Look at you connecting dots. I love that. Well, as a moderator, that's I can recognize that is a major skill. So I think you've got that. But no, you're right though. You're hitting it on the head. I guess, and that's just the whole piece of building lasting relationships, which is so crucial and critical in our industry. Knowing how to partner, when to admit that you're wrong, when to learn, when to, all of those different skills and the discomfort also that comes with that kind of thing. And the nice thing about having a partner for so long is that you can work on those things and, just eventually learn how to lean into what feels hard and realize that you can overcome it.
That comes from, it just struck me when you said it, because you can work on these things with the partner. That comes from commitment. This is something I feel like in terms of business partnerships, relationships that we build with other companies, clients and stuff. What kind of commitment do we make to them and do they make to us where we can actually realize a mutually beneficial relationship that can be worked on? Not everything's going to go great. Not everything's going to be perfect. But are we aware of the development of that commitment in a relationship that says, you know what, I'm going to be in this and stick with you because I believe in what you're doing and how you do it. But we're engaged enough that we can talk about the areas where we need improvement, make mistakes, things aren't working out quite as well, and give you that chance to actually make those improvements for the client and make the changes necessary to keep the relationship positive, ongoing, and productive.
You're so right. And as you were saying all that, I was thinking about, and I think this is something that's true it's definitely true in my relationship with my husband, but then also true in business partnerships as well. And the fact that, it is going to change and evolve over time. And you always have the choice to grow, together or to grow apart. And so I think the key is being able to kind of roll with the punches and realize that there are times that maybe one person needs to be supported more. Like, for example, I'll just say that one professional aspect that I didn't hit on was that the 7 years prior to the pandemic, I was with a company called On Peak, which is a housing bureau, and that is where I really had most of my career growth and development. I became a director there, so it was a really great experience. And I had a nice salary. I had a nice, healthy salary, and my husband is self-employed, and he has been self-employed for many years now, and so I was the one who had this super solid, the salary, the insurance, all that stuff. Then the pandemic happens and that totally shifted. I lost that job. All of a sudden me, who was the breadwinner with a solid, secure position, I couldn't bring that to my family anymore. That was off the table. And then he, still self-employed and has a successful, job and company, but still it was just a shift, right? Where all of a sudden he had to step into this role and I had to step more into this role of being more around the house and supporting here. And frankly, I'm still learning how to deal with that shift in our relationship structure, because it's really different. It's really different.
Yeah.
I guess my point is that that can happen in business partnerships too. And, just companies that work together and weather the changes that we've seen over the last few years. And it's going to be a matter of, can business partners or vendors or suppliers grow together, or, maybe sometimes it's time to just cut ties and
part ways.
But
yeah. So, speaking of which, you're talking here specifically about your journey as an entrepreneur, a female entrepreneur in America, which is a little different than an entrepreneur in other countries, as I'm learning that the way that they do business and how they see business and relationships, it's very different. Americans view it very aggressively, but also tactically. And of course, there's so many different shows and so many different programs and so much content built around entrepreneurs. So do you have a personal philosophy about entrepreneurship? Your journey as an entrepreneur?
A personal philosophy, which is I still don't know if I'm cut out for it. No, I am.
Well, it could be in development, right?
It is in development. I mean, I never, ever wanted to be an entrepreneur. It was not part of my desire. And like I mentioned, being on Peak, the company that I was at prior to this whole new time of life, I probably would have retired there, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was very, very happy there with what I was doing. I mean, did I have a little like nagging feeling that was like, yeah, you have a few little dreams there, and maybe I guess I just didn't realize that maybe was a little entrepreneurial bug. So yeah,
so you're kind of like the accidental entrepreneur.
Oh my gosh. Totally. Like, yes, accidental.
Yeah. And COVID pushed me into it as well. When I realized that the skill sets I'd built over my entire life, the relationships I had built, the different career paths and jobs and things I had done actually suited me very well to be an entrepreneur.
Ooh.
And while I had the bug and I had that same thing, you were like, it'd be kind of cool if I could just, X, Y, and Z. And wouldn't it be nice to have my own business? And then the other thoughts flood in. Oh my God, I'd have to manage everything. And how am I going to, how am I going to build revenue? And all the other questions that could come in, when you're trying to step into the arena of entrepreneurship. And then suddenly you find yourself doing it. Like you're already there. And then you're looking around going, oh, that's how these things take place.
Well, you're so right. And the other thing that you realize, and then once you really start consuming that multitude of entrepreneurial content that you mentioned is out there, because you're right, there is no shortage. You start really listening to how other entrepreneurs got started, or other people.
Yes.
I mean, even people that are close industry colleagues. And you were like, oh, like everyone's literally just trying to figure it out day by day. Like, okay, sure. There's some people who have figured it out, many, many, many steps ahead of where I am, or maybe where you are. But you just realize that no one is born knowing this knowledge. We are all just trying to figure it out.
We have our audience is built up of entrepreneurs, subject matter experts, and business leaders and executive leaders and things like that. So they are thirsty, always thirsty for additional knowledge and experiences on the entrepreneurial journey. Speaking of which, on our journey here at the Fearless Rev, we talk about fear. So we're going to get into fear with Jen Salerno, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with Jen Salerno on the Fearless Rev podcast. Don't mind me while I hiccup and mess up my speaking. It's cool. We were just talking about the career path with entrepreneurs, the philosophy of entrepreneurship, and now we're going to dig a little deeper into fear. Obviously, that's what we talk about here on the Fearless Road, the valleys, not the peaks. We talk about the journey to get to success and what that looks like. And today we are going to be getting a little deep dive with Jen Salerno on her journey with fear. So talk to us a little bit. Do you have an OG? Because you mentioned an origin story earlier. Do you have an OG story about fear?
Oh, ooh. Um, I'm gonna go back. Yes, and I would say I was thinking about this as far as my relationship and journey with fear and the different ways that I have probably not really acknowledged that it was something that's what it was. But I mean,
yes, I understand that statement right there, because sometimes you didn't realize that it was fear you were dealing with. Some of the skill sets that we're raised with, nurture versus nature, family, and our surroundings, provides us with a filter and a perspective that doesn't always see fear for what it is.
yes, I would agree. And not to avoid the question, I'll go back to what I was going to say.
Sure.
I just want to add that I was thinking about the fact that sometimes this fear that keeps showing up throughout life is like, well, why? Like, what is the fear? And like, I feel like I almost still can't even answer that question exactly. Like, what exactly is the purpose of this fear? Why is it coming? But
that's what this show is about. It is to ask that question. Why do you keep popping up? Why are you always here? Why do you keep running me down? Why you challenge me every single time I turn a corner and try to do something? Boom, there's that nagging fear, or that question of worthiness, or that you're attempting to be something that you're not. And yeah, I'm asking that same question, which is, what's the purpose of it? If we don't lean into it and ask what the purpose is, are we running from it? Are we avoiding it? Are we not using it correctly? And I think we can find a way to make it a better tool in our lives. And so, yeah, what's the OG? Tell me the story.
So I was thinking about when I was working at the Palmer House, and at the time I was in the convention services department. And this actually has nothing to do with work, to be honest, but I was thinking about something where I realized that sometimes you just like have a fear, or maybe even the fear just like disappears, and there's some other kind of overpowering something that takes over. But I had just moved into a condo. Actually, I had purchased a condo, and I was in my mid-20s, and it was a brand new gut rehab situation. And so they were trying to turn over the former like people who were developing it and made it into now they're like, okay, now we need a new board and everything. Like, something inside my body, I think I was 25 at the time, was just like, you have to be president. You have to be president of the association. Like it is going to fall to you. It's not something I wanted to do. It's something I was terrified to do, but it was something that was like, this is on you. And I don't know what made me think that. It
sounds like you were called to it, just internally called to the task, to the challenge.
Kind of. Yeah. But like, this is not to say that there wasn't like fear associated with that. And like, every time we step into some kind of leadership role, and I had a boss of mine point out to me, he said, Jen, you are a leader. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't see myself that way at all, right? I'm scared to do this, I'm scared to do that. And he's just like, yeah, except that you have a desire to like move up and grow in this department. You did this, you're doing that. And then I thought to myself, I was captain of cheerleading in high school. And then the whole thing with the president of the condo association or whatever. And it's just kind of funny to think about all those different times where something seems really scary to do, but then yet it's just like a total like desire to just do it anyway, to kind of push through that fear. So maybe the OG fear story is the fact that there are times when you're really, really called to do something, you just stare that fear in the face and say, like, move out of the way, because this is something that has to be done. And
Jen, did you just describe courage?
I guess I did. Is that the flip side of fear, would you say?
No, actually, I don't think that it's the flip side of fear. This is interesting. You and I had talked previously, because we do our homework,
We do.
um, ab- about Brene Brown, and she mentions courage, talks about courage a lot, as well as shame and other things that I find fascinating. Fear has been obvious. I mean, courage has been described as facing fear and knowing that you have fear about something and doing it anyway. I think that's a little kind of oblivious. I think real courage is understanding the risks and the challenges in front of you 100%, and then taking them on and mitigating them based on your understanding of a few things. One is desire and passion for doing what it is you want to do. Two, you know what? I have enough confidence in what I'm capable of to take this on, even with those risk factors, even with the self-doubt that's dragging me down or bothering me or confronting me. And three, that you somehow know, and I don't know if I want to describe this as hope, but it's something that you know that's on the other side, the unknown result that's on the other side of this challenge, on the other side of this task, that there's going to be some reward, that there's a growth opportunity, there's change that's coming. A part of you knows, there's a tickle in the back of your brain or your soul or your spirit that goes, you know what, if I do this, something great is going to become of me. Something amazing is going to happen. I feel that, and I need to take this on. And I think that is real courage, because the risk of failing and the cost at failing, it gets greater and higher the more you care about what you're taking on.
Yes.
And you are so fully aware and present and of what that risk is to you and to the people that it impacts, that even though you take it on and do it anyway, I think that's real courage in the face of all of that.
Well, I wish, I wish that is something that we could tap into all the time. Because so I think that's something that I find so bizarre about fear, or when you have the lack of courage, is trying to remember those past experiences and being like, that I did that. Why? Where is that now? And also the fact that it can be something as simple as, do I want to post on LinkedIn today? And then feeling some kind of fear about that. Something so small, low stakes.
Yes. Where's that kid who got back on that bicycle after falling down 100 times and still learned how to ride? That, as a child, just the act of learning to ride a bicycle. When you look at it and you stand back, little tiny kid on two wheels going, fast. The risk of failing, which, by the way, every time you fail in riding a bicycle, you get hurt. Like, literally get hurt. You fall off, you fall down. It's no joke. But kids have this resilient spirit that goes, get back up and get on there. Of course, they have their parents backing them up and helping them and guiding them and cheering them on all the way. But, which is probably a great thing, by the way, surround yourself with people that love, respect you, and support you and hold you up and in that light, that's going to hold your candle up in that storm and not only protect it for you, but relight it with their light and their joy and their energy. If that's, get those people around you, and you will always get back up and ride the bicycle.
I think you hit on a big key right there, is a support system.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's crucial to have one surrounding you. And if that's one of the things, when you look at the fears that you're facing in your life or the choices that you're making, do you have a support system that can help you with that particular fear you're facing, that particular challenge you're about to overcome, or the thing that you want to become next? If you can identify that there's a gap there, then perhaps filling that gap with the right support system or individual who can back you up will give you that extra little nudge that you need to take that challenge on and find the courage to face that fear.
Right. Very true. Very true.
Well, okay. So I was looking at some of your posts on LinkedIn. I was, trolling and scrolling. And you had a post in June that you labeled fear or fulfillment. And you had talked about Stephen Pressfield's book, The War of Art.
Yes.
And said the more scared we are of work or calling, the more sure we can be that we have to do it. And you mentioned that you had a choice. I can let myself feel intimidated and unworthy, get stuck comparing myself and asking, who do I think I am to be here? Or I can remind myself that I'm on my own journey, that I'm investing in this course because I know in my heart that I'm meant to do this and that I aspire to be around people who inspire fulfillment. So where are you with that journey and that philosophy? I love that you wrote this because, yes, there are two ways to feel about taking on a new project, a new career path, a new job, a new course that you're trying to do, especially when you're the one that's changing, when it's you that is making some deep, meaningful, impactful change in your person by taking this on. That sort of imposter syndrome or that self-doubt that can creep in. But I love how you're reminding yourself that you're on a journey. Talk to me a little bit about that journey. You're still on the journey? I assume this was only a few months ago.
Oh my
So
gosh.
you're like, nope, I'm done. I'm out. See you later.
Well, listening back to what I wrote, I mean, the first thought that went in my head was, well, where did that go? How do
I do this all the time. I look back at my stuff and somebody shows it to me. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Who wrote that? And they're like, you did. And I'm like, oh my God.
Right. Where did that attitude go? Because I must and I remember when I did that post because I was reading that book that morning and I came across that and I was just like, oh, turn to the computer and I'm just like inspired in that flow state or whatever, just like those things just come pouring out. And then I will go back and look and be like, oh, right. So you said something about reminder. Like that's maybe we should go back and read all of our LinkedIn posts as reminders for when we do have those moments of clarity. Because I think that's what it is. Those are these moments of clarity. I guess what really is challenging is where I'm at on my journey right now. Or I mean, maybe it's it's just been challenged throughout my whole life, and maybe is for most people, is that you have to. It is a constant daily reminder. Like it is. I don't think anyone just reaches that point, like you said, where it's like, oh no, I have reached the end of this journey. I am, I'm 100% fearless. Like right. I mean, I don't think that's ever going to happen.
I really should put a dash in it called the fearless road because the practice is to learn how to fear less and move towards and lean into doing more, right? With your life, your challenges, whatever those things are. No one's completely 100% fearless. It's not possible.
Right.
Unless you're a sociopath, I suppose. But, and no dig on sociopaths, so don't dive bomb my show. But the idea of this practice on the journey is I think sometimes we fall out of practice. We just get distracted by life. We get distracted by politics and TV and family and other people's issues and things going on, that our actual practice of being fearless, learning to be fearless, asking the questions and investigating our own personal journey and our growth, it just falls to the wayside because we start putting other priorities first. And I think this practice is crucial. I think we don't want to wait till we're 50 and go and just wake up one day and going, oh my God, how did I get here? Which is what happened to me again. I mean, I've done that 5 times, oh my God, how did I get here? Well, do you really want to keep asking the question, or do you want to be more present and intentional with the practice of your own life, your own journey?
Yes, so true. And I love that you said that because it's just we do have that choice. Like, I will totally acknowledge that where I am now, this journey that I'm on of entrepreneurship and this constant facing of fear, which has just been exceptional and so much growth. But it's not something that I intentionally set out to do. I was I'm going to say forced into it really because of the pandemic. And so I definitely I love reading stories about people who, made this leap because they felt like that's what they had to do at the time. And it's just like, wow, like to go from something where you felt super solid and then you're like, no, I'm going to jump off a cliff. I just was kind of pushed off a cliff. Right. So it's like, well,
weren't we all?
Well, yeah.
I mean, if you look at the meme of the world and there's like this cliff and the world's like slowly being shoved to it by COVID, necessity is the mother of all invention. And some of those people got squirrel suits and dove. Some of them got parachutes and floated out. Other people fell to their demise.
Yeah.
Like COVID really shook the proverbial snow globe of this planet. And what settled out of it, I think, was this intense growth of entrepreneurial spirit, of people taking on things they never would have done before because you had to. You just had to reinvent yourself and find a new path. And that energy, I think, has seeped into a lot of places around the globe that is creating new opportunity, new businesses, new ideas, new pathways. And I think that's a pretty cool thing.
I do too. And the funny thing about that, I think you're so right that it did infuse a whole new world for a lot of people. And also we have to have many different social kind of platforms to think for that as well. Right. I mean, it's a perfect storm of opportunity for people, between being able to grow grow your business on, LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok or whatever it may be. But also then the amount of people who maybe didn't have that exact same experience. So sometimes I'll go to industry events and I'll run into people who I knew, 5 years ago or back in the day when I was in a completely different, career role. And they say, I love how you've reinvented yourself. Like, I think it's so amazing. And I'm just like, huh. And I always think about when people say that to me, because I'm like, anyone can, like, I am like, who am I to do? Anyone can do that.
This is right. But this is exactly what my family and my friends said to me. You always just reinvent yourself. It's so easy for you. You just land on your feet, man. Every time something happens, you just poof, come out with a whole new you and a whole new whatever. And I'm like, do I?
Is that what I'm doing?
Yeah. Exactly. And this is what I talked about, I think we mentioned to you before, which is if you're not living your life with intention and meaningful purpose, if you're asleep at the wheel of your own car of life, right? You've got it on autopilot, then you accidentally do these things. You're not intentionally doing these things. And then when you discover that over time, you have accidentally used the same set of skills, the same characteristic traits, and the same energy or whatever to reinvent yourself, to start over, to pick yourself back up. And you just do this because somewhere deep inside, that's naturally how you operate, but you've never been doing it intentionally. I woke up one day thinking, oh my God, for 50 years, I've been doing this. What if I did it intentionally? Like, what if I used that energy with real purpose behind it, set some intentional goals, right?
Goals. Mm-hmm.
What could I achieve? Like, what would I become next if I actually used this for good? With great power comes great responsibility.
I love it. Well, and that's why, I think it's so important that you're starting, that you have this podcast, right? Because it is being able to say to just you and I are both like, okay, like, sure, we have made some of these moves, either, purposely or accidentally or whatever, but like, we are both looking at each other, like at ourselves saying, we're just regular people, right?
Right. Doesn't everybody just do this?
Yeah.
I thought everybody did
right.
this.
And so
it never occurred to me to examine it as a thing, like a habit or you know what I mean? Or is it my go-to? Am I falling back to this? And one of the interesting things Travis Elliott, my yogi instructor, said,
love yoga.
We fall to our practice, meaning that if you're not practicing and training 100% every single day to improve yourself and build that foundation, what you fall back to, what you fall down to, what you fall onto is what's left, right? It's the weakest part of yourselves. It's that space that EA doesn't have what you need, isn't supported, or isn't getting you where you need to go. And for those of us who have either accidentally practiced this art of reinvention and reinventing ourselves, or choosing to come up with new changes and challenges for ourselves, apparently that foundation we built has grown and strengthened and become a go-to place for us when we fall. And I don't say fail because I don't think you're a person that fails. I'm not a person I don't think that fails. I learn. If something happens, it doesn't work out, I learn. I learn something about myself, something about the thing that I'm tackling, or something about the world around me. And I can use that to grow and change and improve my life in some way, shape, or form. It may not be huge and impactful, but it is crucial. It is a crucial understanding to know that what we fall back to is that area, that space that you've been practicing all along. And it's important to make sure you're well trained and you've kept up your practice.
That is amazing. And talk about how you could use yoga in like every it's like the perfect analogy for business and just, you know, a guide to life. I'm completely with you. Yes. It's such a wonderful, there's so many wonderful philosophies that you can take with you. I want to tell a story. It made me think about something.
Let's everybody scoot in. Let's get this.
Here's a vulnerable moment for the show. Okay.
Vulnerability, the power, the source. Let's talk about this.
Back in May, I did something that was a big leap for me. And it was, you know, I'm on this entrepreneurial journey as a moderator and an MC, and I did an event. I emceed an event. I've emceed events. I've emceed sessions. I've moderated plenty of sessions, probably mostly virtual, over the last several years. Right. And then slowly there were some more in-person things happening. But this was, to be completely honest, the first multi-day conference MC in person in front of it was about a 500 person audience, right? The first time. That in itself, terrifying, right? Like I knew I'd been working towards it. Yes. You know, I've been building up all these, you know, over the last 3 years, the skill set to do it, but like, there's nothing like actually doing it.
Yes. And for our audience, just by the way, if you're not familiar with the event industry space and what an MC does, for an event like she's describing, with there's a 500-person event, multi-day, the MC is the glue. The MC is the narrator of the entire course and path that the event takes based on what the event planners and the creators wanted. The messaging that has to get out there, the updates that have to come out through the day, the keeping up of the spirit and the energy, the connecting of people and resources and engagement opportunities throughout the event. You're the thing they look at. You're there on camera in front of everybody 100% of the time, making sure that everything's going smoothly and ensuring that people get what they need and that the messages that are coming through are being communicated. So take us through that. With that journey with you.
Well, I mean, first of all, I could not have said it better myself. That was perfect. That was like literally exactly how to describe that role. I know.
Yeah. So that no pressure, right? It's just you in 3 days and 500 people waiting breathlessly for you to entertain them and keep them up to speed.
Exactly. And really, it was, I knew I could do it and I did do it. And I know that I executed it, I'm going to say professionally. Because I'm a professional, right? Like I prepped. What came out of that, though, I will say, there was some feedback. There was feedback, and it was not exactly what I was hoping for. And what happens? What happens when you get that kind of feedback after something like that? The thing you've been working for. Holy cow!
How did you take it?
You know. I mean, at first,
was it 3 days of Ben and Jerry? Like,
no, it wasn't horrible. It wasn't horrible, and it was what frankly, I knew. I knew that was. I knew what my weakness was going into it, and weakness being that it was the first time, but also just the fact that I'm still learning. Frankly, I'm still trying to gain confidence. Of being on a stage, and which sounds bizarre because it's like, well, this is what I'm doing and I love doing it. And I do have a certain degree of natural ability to do that. But there is a difference between getting up and giving a speech that you've practiced versus emceeing, which is a lot of improv. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that is
it's more, well, emceeing is your personality. I mean, emceeing is you. When so the biggest challenge I think most of us have these days, and I'm going to say this for every industry and almost every person on this planet, is to find your authenticity and live it. When you share that authenticity in a public forum, on a stage, with people who will review that personality and that authenticity, and if it doesn't resonate with them, it can be very challenging and very difficult to swallow that I wasn't a good fit. But I didn't bring my authenticity game or whatever.
Well, that was it. I didn't bring authenticity. I brought professionalism, like I said, but like I kept myself in a I think I kept myself in a box. Like Jen
well scripted and
Jen didn't come out on that stage. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
And so, and it was noticeable. So, okay. So yes, was there Ben and Jerry's or, the tears for sure, tears for sure. And long walks and thinking and reflecting and all of that. But also it's like double down. Like that's where I also I had the little period of sadness, and then it was like, well, what am I going to do here? So it's like I know that I need to get some additional confidence to just like let whatever it is go that makes me afraid to just be me on a stage, right? So I'm gonna sign up for an improv course and just like you just go like that, like that's the move, like that, it's that. And I probably should have done it a long time ago, frankly.
Yes.
But it's just I just gotta keep doing it. You know what, another thing that I think about all the time is I should just do like 30 days of like LinkedIn lives. Like, so if you're listening to me, who's going to watch? I don't care. Nobody, but just the act of like going on a camera for 30 days and just like break down that fear of just letting it out.
Yes. And listeners, I will tell you, like every one of you out there listening should take an improv class. Take an improv class. I swear you're going to discover so many things about yourself that you didn't know before. But you also, when you complete these courses and these improv opportunities, your confidence in conversations, in live reactions, in personal relationships, in engaging with others in public spaces, whether that be one-on-one or with multiple people or in a professional setting, you will gain improvisational skill sets that you can put right in your pocket and be like, I know how to play this game. I can say, what if, and I can ask pertinent questions, or I can tease out something that somebody else was saying, because improv's cool. It's just a great opportunity to see where your authenticity lies in terms of both your sense of humor as well as your listening skills. Because if you are not a good listener, you cannot do improv. You've got to learn to hear what others are saying in order to play off of it. And that means you've got to be tuned in. And that's, I think, I think a lot of us aren't tuned in, right? We walk into our workspaces, we walk into our offices, we walk into our buildings. Hi, it's Rhodes. How was your day? Having coffee and by the cooler and stuff like that. But we're really not tuning in to what people are saying, and probably their body language as well.
I mean, we're just like in our heads most of the time, right? Just living in this space. If you're living in a space of just like right there with you, I'm listening to you. I'm gonna bounce off of you. Like, I mean, and that's what an MC, I know that's what an MC's job is. And then, I've seen, fabulous MCs and like when you were hosting that game show, I mean, you were like very, very authentic. I mean, it was just like,
did you know right before when we went live, because we were live, this is a live broadcast for those of you who don't know, in front of, how many thousands of people were at the event at the conference?
I mean, it was at least 4,000, I think. Yeah.
There was a gulp moment when the camera went live and I knew that I was on a screen somewhere in front of all these people. And I was like, my mouth went dry. My hands, they were shaking, but they were down here. And I was like, oh my God, get it under control, Michael. Like you've done this before. What the hell are you doing? Like, why are you so nervous? Where'd this come from? And this is not the time to have the inner conversation with my fear, like, which I normally would do, which is, hey, what, are you okay? What's going on with you? Why are you suddenly showing up? Let's sit down and talk about this. Well, I can't do them on camera because I'm in front of all these people at an event. So I'm like, you got to take a back seat. I got to perform. So I need you to calm down so I can be real and enjoy myself. And that's my job, is to bring the joy in the moment and the fun and the engagement, right? I can't be cold and nervous for these people. I got to be that glue factor that engages with them and brings them together, makes them feel comfortable on camera.
And you did. So like, I know those of us participating or watching probably didn't notice that at all. I certainly didn't. Probably because I was in my own little fear moment, right? Of being like, because I was a contestant, and so it's like, I know I have to
Yes.
talk. Every time you have
Yeah.
to, you have to talk. It's like you get that little butterflies, right? But then once you're going, it's fine. But I mean, I think that's so impressive. Like how many years have you been doing that kind of role? I mean, like you just said, but it's
Right.
the fear still strikes you.
It's still there. It does. And I think that's because, like I said before, when you know you're stepping into something that is important to you, that is of moral, ethical, philosophical, personal, emotional value, you're going to be a little nervous, right? You're carrying this little egg of joy and experience. You could drop it.
Yeah.
You could make a mistake. It could cost you something, if you lost it or if it didn't work. The amazing thing is it's never going to kill you. I mean, unless you're jumping off a cliff, it's not going to kill you. These fall downs, these risks, these mistakes, this fear that you feel, you're not going to die. You will change. There will be an impact and there may be a consequence. But if you take every one of those and use it as a building block for the next experience, I think we can turn that fear into a fuel and we can make it powerful for us and a sense of direction and give us some guidance on where we are with ourselves in those moments, right? If it pops up, that means something's happening in that moment you should be aware of. You need to wake up and pay attention because there's something happening in this moment that is resonating with your little fear factor, your little amygdala is going off, right? And warning you about something that's valuable and important to you in this moment.
I mean, if that isn't like a guide to life, I don't know what is. Write it
Write this
down.
down. Who's in
No,
here?
but you're so right. I mean, it is an indicator. It is like a flag that's like, hello, something important is happening.
Yeah.
Pay attention.
Hello, pay attention. Yeah,
Where
exactly.
and what's the opportunity? Yes, like
what is the opportunity? And so I'm going to jump here for my opportunity to ask you, Jen Salerno, what is your relationship with fear?
My relationship with fear is it. I cannot say.
Do you have one? Are you aware that you have one?
Oh yes, I do, and okay. I mean it is. I cannot say that I'm at a point where fear is my friend. I know that's the ultimate goal.
Fair enough. It is.
It's more like that. It's like a nagging ex-boyfriend where you're like, why are you popping up again?
We got bad blood. It's like Taylor Swift.
Kind of. And so I am still working on, everything that you just said about the fact that when it pops up, it's like, okay, wait, this is an opportunity. I still am extremely susceptible to letting it negatively impact me. And so that is the practice. The practice is to kind of put up that shield of against, the nagging ex. That text does not have to throw you off, right?
Yeah.
You can just say, yes. Okay. You can just hang out right there. Like, it's almost like saying, like, just like you said, like, you need to take a back seat right now. Like, you just don't let I let it bother me. I do still let it bother me.
But don't you think that's part of it? That part of the reason why we do not handle fear well is because we've been taught all our lives not to handle it well. Like, we've been taught, crush your fear, kill your fear, push it away, shove it down, run from it if you have to, ignore it, it'll just go away. None of those are actively engaging with it as a fair and valuable component of your life. Like, if it's fear you're feeling, it isn't from the outside, right? It's not somebody doing something to you. It's you. It's your personality. It's one of your personality traits. The kind personality trait, the happy personality trait, joyful personality, sad personality trait. Well, fear is one of your personality traits, and it has a voice, and it isn't going away. And I feel like what we've been taught is to treat it like some redheaded stepchild we want nothing to do with. And I just think that's not working. It just isn't working, and it's not healthy. And so, yeah, my job or my role or my passion right now, with Fearless Road and with Making for Your Friend is to look at it differently and start treating our fear as a valued partner in our journey with life. And how do you treat a valued partner? What do you do with a valued partner? What are the steps we take to increase and engage with and foster a relationship with a valued partner?
Right.
Right. And I think if we start framing it or reframing it this way, I think we will come through and out the other side of fear so much better and more improved than we ever could have before if we treated it differently.
You're so right. And it is all in the reframe. So, fear is.
Oh, it's all in the reframe, right there. It's all in the reframe.
Fear is an uncomfortable emotion, right? And so that's another area. And I think about, this is a phrase that one of my yoga teachers said, that I really try to hang on to and remember, which is find comfort in the discomfort. And
oh yes,
right,
lean into
it. And I always think about it when he would say it when we would be in a half pigeon, right? like right,
yes.
Just breathe into this. Yep. Breathe into this discomfort. Find some comfort here, and it's like, man, and so that.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, sorry, we just made a reference to a yoga pose called the half pigeon in Yin practice. So there's yoga. There's yoga, power yoga, which is the yang, which is the active moving through all these poses with a lot of energy and power. Yin is the relaxed and calm version of this, holding a pose for a long period of time. And one of those poses you hold in Yin yoga is called the pigeon. You fold one leg in front, one leg behind, and then you're supposed to lean over that leg. You're supposed to lay down and relax and put your head on the floor. Well, if you have hips like me and knees like me and a back like me, staying in that pose,
it is not comfortable at all.
Not comfortable. Yeah. And sitting in that discomfort, your brain starts to do things, fiddle, monkey mind, you name it. All kinds of things are going to flutter in on your brain because it's trying to get you out of a pose that is physically a little uncomfortable, but you have to breathe through it and maintain. And I think it's an important practice in sitting in discomfort. Because you can do it. You can, and you won't die. It's not going to kill you. But what you learn about yourself is that when you're approached with discomfort, when you know it's coming and a situation is going to arise where your discomfort is there and live and active, because you've practiced this before, because you've done other things where you've sat in discomfort long enough to go, okay, I'm going to get this. You can use that practice in these situations. And I think it makes a big difference.
I do too. And so it really comes down, and we keep using the word practice. And I think that's such a key, because it is, like a meditation practice. They always say it's like 5 minutes a day is way better than 2 hours once a week. It's just, it's a daily thing. It is a daily thing that you have to just keep pushing yourself to do. And
life is a practice. Life is a practice. None of us got a book or a manual on this. None of us were sent down here going, I got this. You humans watch. Maybe Jesus, okay? Maybe he had this. But the rest of us, we're all here shooting from the hip. We're all here just trying our best, stumbling over the things that, and by the way, life brings so many strange and weird confrontations and obstacles and opportunities, and it totally depends on which path you're chasing and where you're putting that energy, because each direction you go, you're going to get a new set of obstacles, a new set of challenges, a new set of opportunities in front of you. There's no book. Now there's us, there's the Fearless Road, there's podcasts you can listen to, there's people you can listen to and tune into to get a little feedback and insight on. But trust me, you're not alone on this journey of life, and it is a practice to be fearless and try to stay fearless. So talking a little bit about that part of the practice, are there any specific goals or milestones in your practice life that you have upcoming in front of you?
Well, I will say, I I had a podcast previously, and it was called The Room Block, and I ran it for about 2 years, so from summer of 2020 to summer of 2022, and then I stopped because I felt like I was getting busy, and I was, and I still am. However, talk about something that's a practice, right? I mean, the practice of running and operating and hosting a podcast is something that is extremely beneficial. So hats off to you for doing it. But I do feel like it's something that I want to start again. Not that specific podcast, but something a little different. Not having to do with fear, but
Yes, I picked a good subject matter. I'm just saying, I was like, wow, this is what you want to
no,
talk about?
it's super helpful. I know that everyone's gonna loving it, but yeah, but so something like I would say that is something, a goal that I have is to get that going again, because honestly, it keeps me in practice. It keeps me, honing my craft of speaking and
Yes,
conversing
yes,
and moderating conversations. And I
yes.
want to get back to that more, because it's something that I really do love doing, and it can only make me better.
Well, if this is your art, if engaging with people is your art, right, and using your voice as a platform is part of your art, then how do we practice? Like, where's my canvas? Picasso could go into a studio every afternoon alone by himself and his paintbrushes and his colors and create magic. But he practiced, right? I mean, it was an art for him to practice getting on that canvas. Well, I thought of the same thing last year when this idea of the podcast and my motivational speaking career came about. I wanted a place to practice the art of me. I wanted a place I wanted a canvas and a platform where all of the paintbrushes and colors of who I am could come to life, and that I could give and use that to give back to a community. And I feel like you're right, that this is
Yes.
where I practice. And it's a space for me to really just sort of, learn how to be a better me by listening to other people and on their journeys.
Yes.
So
Well, thank
thank you
you
for
for
being
having me.
here. Thank you for allowing me to
I love how
practice.
you describe different things about your journey or entrepreneurship or the work that you do. You have a very beautiful way of describing it. It is a gift. So
Oh, thank you.
this is where you're meant to be, for sure. Speaking.
To share my gift. Yes. And speaking of that, like, my last before I get to my last question, actually, there was a second post that you wrote back in March. You just talked about some of your milestones and your future that you want to tackle and add to your particular plate, which I find interesting because you posted, are you placing unnecessary limits on yourself? Sometimes limits are good for us. However, have you ever stopped to consider if you're placing limits on yourself or others that might not be so helpful? So you're placing the opposite of a limit is you're placing a bar, right? In life, I think we do both. We place limits and we place bars. And somewhere in between these two, right, in that zone is where we live, right? This is the space we live in. This is the space we exist in. And hopefully this is the space where we're abundant and we're growing and we're being amazing. But if our limits and our bars are too close together, is there room for growth?
Oh man, that is a good question.
Carrie Bradshaw, write that
Yes,
down.
I couldn't help but wonder.
That's an episode. I want to be on my bed with my little journal and be like, is there room for growth?
I love the way that you just described all of that. Yeah, I think they can be too close together. I think that, and I find this in myself too. Like, you just asked me a question about what my goal is. Like, okay, well, I already had a podcast, so that's my goal. It's to start it again. No, that, like, there is more. There is more, and I almost feel like I dare to even think it or speak it or say it, and that is the key. Is allowing ourselves to want that and to think it and to say it and to speak it out loud, So
So you're talking about vulnerability. Which brings me to my final question. We ask our guests when they come on the Fearless Road to share their personal journeys with us, especially talking about fear, which means we have to be vulnerable. And as I've always said, this is a vulnerable space. This is a great space to share your vulnerability and be vulnerable. You will not be judged here. You will not be ridiculed. This is a space to be vulnerable and share vulnerability. Talk to me about, is vulnerability necessary for courage? Is vulnerability necessary for progress?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I think so for sure. I feel like women tend to have an easier time with this aspect because we are allowed
100%.
to feel
Mhm.
to feel more vulnerable and to act more vulnerable and to speak in a more vulnerable way.
There's that society limit on men and bar
Yes.
for women,
Yes.
right? Men are limited because we're not allowed to be vulnerable. Women are encouraged and set a bar high.
Mhm.
Be vulnerable. You're not a woman if you're not vulnerable.
Exactly. So, yes, it is 100% necessary. I have a friend who is a man, and he is extremely emotional and shows vulnerability a lot. And then in the next breath will say, "I'm sorry to be so weak." And I say,
Ooh.
"You are
Oh.
not weak. That's incredible strength
No.
to show that."
Yes. How do we teach? God, I'm going to say the world, and this is ambitious. Hopefully my show reaches the world. How do we begin to teach our audience and our listeners that vulnerability is a power source? It is a source of your authentic power. And it is the place where your creativity, your ingenuity, your love, your joy, your abundance comes from, your growth. That is the nurturing soil on which we grow, the fields of brilliance and ingenuity and creativity. You know, how do we teach that? How do we share with the world and people that being vulnerable is okay? Not just okay,
Necessary.
it's necessary.
And it is showing strength. I think it's a show of strength.
Well, then it requires it requires a redefining, right? You have to redefine what vulnerability is, as strength and vulnerability, two sides of the same coin, right? You can't get strength if you're not vulnerable. I mean, let's put it in gym perspective, right? You go into a gym and you stand there and you're like, oh, I want to get big and muscular and strong. Well, guess what? You can't do that if you don't pick up a weight. You got to get vulnerable first and find out that's too heavy. You're never going to lift it. You got to go down there and I'm going to start with the 15 pounds.
You're right, though. That's a great analogy.
Right? So if what you want is growth, if what you want is advancement, if what you want is progress in your life, you have to start from a place of vulnerability and acknowledge there are places that need strengthening and places that need growing and places that need training and practice. That's vulnerability. That's acknowledging I need to grow. And in order to do that, I got to get vulnerable first, and then I got to pass through this. Gosh, I love exploring these things because they help me see, in my perspective, that I have had these strengths all my life, that I have had, and I have been displacing or misplacing my strengths by mislabeling them, by not giving the appropriate attention, and by not honoring them as part of me. And I think it's time we do that. I think it's time we take a step back and we honor fear, we honor vulnerability, we honor that it takes those things to get to courage. It takes those things to get to fearless.
Yes.
Right? Gosh, good stuff. So if people want to find Jen Salerno, how do we find you? Where can we find you?
You mentioned LinkedIn, which I'm very thankful for. So yes, that is definitely where I'm posting the most these days. I guess that's just where I like to have the conversations that similar to what we're having now. I do have an Instagram account, it's JT Salerno, Facebook as well. But yeah, LinkedIn primarily. And then my company is JTS Connect. So I have a website. So jtsconnect.com. And that is, it is through this company that I offer event hosting, emceeing, moderating, as well as podcast hosting or on-camera hosting services to any type of client. But I do love to serve the events and hospitality industry because that is where I came from.
And they love you. Speaking of loving you, I love you, and I'm so appreciative of you for coming on the show today and sharing with us your journey. I'm sure I'm going to have you back again because it's a journey, and you're going to learn some things, and you're going to have some new stuff to share, especially when you're setting these bars, right? So when we let everybody go today, is there a message or anything you'd like to share with the audience before you part? Is there some kind of positive feedback?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for anyone listening, it really just comes down to you just gotta do it. like we're just like I will. This is funny. So my husband, who is for sure my biggest cheerleader by far, he likes to quote Martin Lawrence from the 90s. Ain't nothing to it but to do it. And like 99.9% of the time he's like totally right. Like it is,
ain't no thing but a chicken wing.
You just do it. Just do it. Like there's like you, I think about you going, like you were saying before, going on the game show, like you just have to do it. Me before that event, 3-day MC, just do it. Just do it. Like what other choice do you have? Just do it.
Oh, well, you have a lot of choices. You can go back to sleep. You can hit that snooze button on your life.
Well, that's the thing.
But what is that going to accomplish you? Accomplish for you? What is that going to accomplish? Don't hit the snooze button on your life. Wake up, people, because you are on a journey and it's a practice at this life, and you can become fearless. So thank you for joining us on the Fearless Road. Thank you for sharing your time and your ears and listening to us today. If you want to learn more, obviously go to thefearlessroad.com or the podcast, or you can look us up on YouTube as well and see the blog, all the information there. So Jen Salerno, namaste, and thank you so much for sharing your fearless journey with us today on the Fearless Road podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Amazing.
It's been wonderful chatting with you, Michael.
Of course. You're welcome. Okay. Bye, everybody. We'll see you later.